I look to heal people. I'm not interested in treating them. When I look at a child that comes to me with their parents and he's or she is autistic, I now have a group of 3 little 5-year-old autistic little girls I'm treating. You have to include that nutrition. Part of what mycotoxins do is they stimulate mast cells to produce pro-inflammatory cytokines. Without getting into complicated terms, immunologic terms, it means that they cause these important immune cells to send out an email blast saying, cause inflammation. And if you don't have the correct nutrition, that mast cell activation will not decrease.
I'm Haylie Pomroy, #1 New York Times best-selling author of the Fast Metabolism Diet and many other New York Times best-selling books. We've sold millions of copies and translated into 47 languages. I am also the former director of the Integrative Medicine program at the Institute for Autoimmune Medicine. I say former because you guys, as you know, I am back in school. I am currently working on my PhD in neuroimmunology. So guys, as you know, I'm constantly impressed with the brilliance that we get to bring to the table for our community and the topics that we get to cover. But it's rare that I'm nervous. And today I'm nervous because we have an individual that probably doesn't know how much of a mentor he's been in my educational quests, but definitely an inspiration in constantly looking for the why and the reason that people are dealing with so many chronic diseases and illnesses. So without geeking out any further, Dr. Andrew Campbell is going to be our guest today. He lectures at many medical schools, Texas University in Houston, Baylor, Oxford, UK, Harvard School of Medicine in Boston. He's also the editor-in-chief of 4 major medical journals. He's the medical advisor for Myco Labs, and he has published over 100 studies on this subject. So, Dr. Campbell, thank you so much for taking time today. I am just honored and excited for all of the community members to get this chance to talk with you.
Thank you so much. You're very kind.
Yeah. So as we were we were talking a little bit before we jumped on about, I'm getting my PhD in neuroimmunology. I just, my community knows, but I was planning on being a vet and had gotten into vet school, was in an alternate position waiting to start when I got really, really sick with an autoimmune disorder and almost died. One of the things that was happened during that process is I learned that I knew that I had been exposed to a lot of toxins, and those toxins were creating immune modulation in my body, or I'm going to call it an out of control immune system, where I developed an autoimmune disorder called ITP. So basically my platelets were attacking itself. So for 30 years of clinical practice now, for me, this has been a topic that has just, in my opinion, not gotten enough attention, and it's critical. And so, if you'll first, just to help our community get up to speed, it's taken me 30 years to get to where I'm at today in understanding. But explain to us what we're dealing with toxicity. And I know right now it's worse than ever.
And it's worse than ever because we've got climate change, and we're reading about it every day in the world: floods, glaciers melting. All kinds of problems, cities being told you're going to be underwater. Well, not under all, but, the water's encroaching on you, all these different things. And these huge storms coming. The problem there is that increases water intrusion into places we weren't used to seeing water. So we're talking about homes, houses, apartments, schools, all kinds of buildings, public and private buildings, etc. And all of these, once they go, and there's just a tiny little puddle the size of your palm, there's a toxic soup that develops in that. That toxic soup includes molds. Now, molds grow everywhere. They're outside. There's over 1 million species, but there's only a few that affect humans, and those are from indoor molds, inside indoor places. And when like when you have a plant, you put some seeds into a pot and some soil and water. Out comes this plant, and it gives seeds. Well, molds do the same thing. They start growing, and instead of seeds, they make spores. Now, your hair is 100 microns thick. Mold spores are 2 to 4 microns thick. What does that mean? That means when you breathe, it goes into the deepest parts of your sinuses and the deepest parts of the lungs, right into the alveoli, where they transfer into the blood and then travel anywhere in the body. The other part is that mycotoxins are 0.1 microns, the same size as a COVID virus, and they are attached to the spores like a key on a key ring. So here comes these spores that you're breathing in, and they're carrying mycotoxins. Toxins are only molecules.
So when we talk about mycotoxins, it's not the physical mold spore itself. It's toxins attached to the mold spores?
It's called, in medicine, a secondary metabolite, but it's attached to a spore.
Are they created at the same time as the spore, or are they...
Yes.
They're developed during it. Okay, I'm going to take 10 steps back for a second because I'm going down the rabbit hole. I have a million questions to ask, but can I first help our community? It's widely recognized now, finally, and maybe some people are going to say that they're not getting that recognition from their physician experience. But mycotoxin can cause a ton of different illnesses. Can you first? I feel like I almost got it, but define for me what it is, what a mycotoxin is.
Mycotoxin comes from toxic molds.
Okay.
These make spores. These spores are small, so they go everywhere throughout the indoor air, and they carry a mycotoxin, and these are toxins. They're as toxic as mercury, glyphosate, arsenic, whatever you want. They're toxin. They're just a molecule. So they don't work at the cellular level. They work even deeper at the molecular level.
Wow. And that's why we see so many chronic diseases manifest, because they disrupt. I mean, I feel like the stuff that we were learning about with RNA and DNA viruses during the pandemic, everybody started to talk about that. I felt like so much of that science pertained to mycotoxins, and it was almost what we saw in the immune system, that mycotoxins were impacting that so significantly.
Correct. As of 3 years ago, there was a study that came and talked about long COVID. And they said, could long COVID have been due to because people stayed at home? They didn't go anywhere. They didn't go out to dinner or shopping or anything. And that the home was contaminated with toxic mold, and they were affected by mycotoxins. Here comes a second study a year later saying we tested 110 patients who had long COVID. We treated them with itraconazole, an antifungal medication, and they got well.
Well, part of that is from what I understand. So in our community, I'm nutrition first, right? I'm like, if we can make an impact in the nutrition, we can make an impact in the body. I've always been suspicious that if I, there's all these people out there that they make a little change. They do a little more broccoli, they add a little more fruits and vegetables, and, weight falls off and they feel better. If you can't make an impact quickly and easily with nutrition, then you've got to make an impact in the body, right? If nutrition can't make it. So I'm always suspect with those clients that come in that stay fatigued, stay inflamed, are weight loss resistance, that there's some sort of a toxic load in that body that they can't reconcile. So they can't do the difficult metabolic work of, anti-inflammation, even healing the gut microbiome. I mean, you've got people that you dump, probiotics into and prebiotics into, and it doesn't change. And I'm always like, look at the body. The body's toxic, or that's my thought. So in the clinical aspect of it, so my community, when I told them I was going to talk to you, they were going, my doctor won't even look at this or address this. But I know we both just, it's heartbreaking. How in our current times, how many people do you think that are dealing with chronic disease, viral reactivation, have a toxic component?
that goes to the heart of everything, which is called inflammation.
Yes.
And you're in the process of getting your PhD in neuroimmunology. You're going to learn a lot about neuroinflammation. Well, what's the first place mycotoxins go to? It's the brain.
Wow.
And so what they do there is they go into the various brain cells, glial cells, astrocytes, neurons, oligodendrocytes, and they go and dysregulate the mitochondria of those cells, and the cell dies. So the first thing that these mycotoxins do is they create demyelination. That's been known and well established for 30 plus years. One of the big things that mycotoxins create are autoimmune disorders.
Yes.
I published a study years ago on autoimmunity and the gut. There was a review study published in the journal Autoimmune Diseases. And I showed in this study, I showed how this works. What is the mechanism? What do you do? Inhale it, and all of a sudden you have psoriasis or rheumatoid arthritis or lupus? How does this actually, what's the mechanism? How does that actually work? And your community, you've taught and teach continually nutrition. Well, in dealing with mycotoxins, there's 4 steps. One is the first rule of toxicology, which is, and the hardest, get the patient away from the toxin or the toxin away from the patient. The second is give them an antifungal, like itraconazole. The third is no more than 8 specific nutraceutical supplements. And the fourth, and this is key, the right nutrition. Without that, you will not you may get somewhat better, but you will not heal. I look to heal people. I'm not interested in treating them. When I look at a child that comes to me with their parents and he's or she is autistic, I now have a group of 3 little 5-year-old autistic little girls I'm treating. You have to include that nutrition. Part of what mycotoxins do is they stimulate mast cells to produce pro-inflammatory cytokines. Without getting into complicated terms, immunologic terms, it means that they cause these important immune cells to send out an email blast saying, cause inflammation. And if you don't have the correct nutrition, that mast cell activation will not decrease.
I love that you said that. You're speaking directly to my heart. I was given anti-rejection drugs. I cycled between Imurin and Cellcept, did a bunch of Mepron, great, right? And 60 to 80 milligrams of prednisone when I got really, really sick. And I had to change the trajectory of my professional career and my health. Yeah. Nutrition saved my life for me, right? I was lucky enough to find a hematological oncologist that would support me in focusing on nutrition and nutraceuticals and natural therapies and antifungals and those types of things. I love that you brought up cytokines and mast cells in the immune system. So how do we, I'm going to talk from a patient advocacy perspective. How does someone find someone that's going to address this massive aspect of health? So we certify health nutrition coaches, right? And I'm like, and I was at the International Conference of Autoimmune Disorders, and doc after doc after doc after doc said, I don't care what drugs on the market, if you don't address nutrition, you're not going to heal the patient, period. And I was like, yes, yes, yes. And then everybody goes back and says, well, now how do I find somebody that can help me with nutrition? Because nutrition is about, right now, there's some bizarre, don't eat less, move more. It's nutrients that facilitate detoxification.
Okay, so you were in Slovenia at the conference?
I was.
Oh my gosh, I almost went. I was this close to going, and I had to cancel due to a group of patients that I needed to see. These were all children. So I always help people. And although I was slotted, I had 2 lectures given.
I know. I know. So, well, it was phenomenal. And there, we'll be in Prague in 2 years and Venice in 2005. So I hope to
see you there.
Yes, I'll see you there for sure. But we came back to the States, and I was traveling with a couple docs and myself, and we just said we get, because we do mast cell activation, we do chronic fatigue, we do myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue in our clinic, we do lots of viral reactivation. People are coming in and they're 20 doctors and 10 years in before they're getting adequate diagnostics over and over and over again. So right. Yeah, but is it teaching the new medical students?
I don't teach students. I teach only faculty.
Yes.
And this is during the summer when the students are doing other things or
right.
gone. I will tell you that the mycotoxins will reactivate EBV, CMV, HHSV6. And because of cross-reactivity, especially with a couple of labs test for Lyme, they will light up the Lyme, but it won't be, it's the cross-reactivity. So you don't actually have Lyme, but your tests come out as positive.
And is that why sometimes we see positive Lyme tests change with the pathogens? So they'll be Ehrlichia positive or Babesia positive, or that's what happened with my daughter. Yeah. That's okay.
I will tell you that the two major labs, I don't want to mention any names here. I will mention this name. Immunosciences Laboratory in Los Angeles is the only laboratory with a patented Lyme test in the United States.
Right.
So it's the number one lab to check with. The other two I would not use. But anyway, right. In the issue of what you mentioned, all these patients who've gone from doctor to doctor to doctor, who've had tests and tests, who've taken medication, supplements, and whatnot, nothing has really, really helped them feel back to where they were. And of course, having dealt with this for many decades and having been involved in a lot of different studies, I can tell you that I can see how mycotoxins play a huge role. I have photographs of patients who came to see me, and I took pictures of them before and after mast cell activation, psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis with psoriasis. And if you want, I can show you them. If you want to click it, allow me to.
I will have you back, and we will go over. No, because I'm always hoping that we can go into some really in-depth conversation. What I'd love to do is have our community, watch this and ask the questions, because it is a science that is, I don't know how else to put it, but in my opinion, so I've been in clinical practice, right? 30 years at helping individuals unravel complex health issues. And fortunately worked with a lot of the docs that you work with and a lot of the clinics and stuff as well. But when they miss this, and that's why I wanted our community to really make sure that this is not a stone left unturned, and the toxicity piece of it. There are other types of toxins besides mycotoxins that you believe should be tested for, correct?
Correct.
Can you help me with some of those?
Several come to my mind. First of all, there's a big group of women who have breast implant illness.
Yes.
We know that that's caused because of two things. And I have 23 studies on breast implants. One is that breast implants, the process for making the shell, whether it's a silicone or saline implant, uses platinum. It's a heavy metal.
Right.
People take fish oil without really paying much attention. They pick it off the shelf somewhere. Yeah. They don't realize that big fish contain mercury. The bigger the fish, the more the mercury.
Right.
And then they go eat tuna sushi and all these other things raw fish with mercury in them.
And there's no normal. So for a chunk of time, I worked in the fertility space. I worked with a lot of the docs in LA and New York and Vegas, helping obviously prepare their patients for positive fertility treatments. And one of the things, and I really feel like people thought in the beginning I was just, I don't know, a little off the beaten path, but I was like, get them off fish oil, get them off fish oil. Besides, it can be back converted into a pro-inflammatory catalyst, right? So I'm a big, with not only the toxicity perspective, but with, fertility and pregnancy and periods and hormones, menopause. Those are such prostaglandin disruptors, right? They can really, inhibit your body from having, a balanced transition in menopause where you don't have hot flashes and you don't have weight gain. And that was one of my biggest things. Again, that came, I have a degree in agriculture and soil sciences. That came from my animal background. Like, we don't use, when we're trying to get twin lambs, in the ag space, one of the very first thing that we do is we're very cognizant that none of our food products contain any fish base. I mean, and even in chickens and laying hens. And I mean, so when I jumped in the fertility space, I said, get rid of the fish oil. And everybody, we only use a fatty acid and we test all of our stuff. We test for arsenic, cadmium, lead. We do heavy metal. We also do mycotoxin and toxin fungal testing. And we do it post-production. Like, so many supplements are, they're supposed to be in there to help your body. And some of them can have the very thing that can disrupt the body. Yeah.
Yes. There was a study in November that showed they took 60 of the most common supplements, took them to the lab, what was on the label, and checked if what's in the bottle. 11% had what was in the bottle on the label. 40% had nothing in the bottle that was on the label. Two more things that you brought up. One is fertility.
Yes.
Toxins cross the placental barrier.
And concentrate.
Correct. Second, zearalenone, which is a mycotoxin, is an estrogenic mycotoxin. So you don't know why. You go to your GYN, try to get your hormones regulated, and it doesn't work. Or all of a sudden, your 8-year-old daughter starts developing breasts and having menstrual periods.
Right.
And you have young men in their 20s and 30s with levels of testosterone that are way down low.
I've been seeing tons of that. I've been seeing 32-year-olds with a 95 testosterone, and a little ag trick, which is not, but old time in farming aspects of raising beef. One of the ways that you can get beef to be more marbled, and this is, I don't know if I'm going to spill the beans on somebody here. Everybody's going to get beef more marbled. We will give male steers, right? Castrated beef, estrogen. A lot of the companies that don't use hormones will use the mold that you said to stimulate an estrogen-like effect. Consider them an organic beef, and they're feeding the cattle mycotoxins so that they become estrogenic, gain weight faster, and have more marbling. I mean, and people say, well, I don't care. It's a cow. I don't care if it has a neurotoxin. It has inflammation. Actually, inflammation makes it gain weight faster. We're consuming that. Not only, cook it, I've had tons of debate about this, cook it, but all the proteins that and the coating of that is still of detriment to our body. Bringing it back to my old Aggie roots, I raise cattle too. And I'm just, it's a little trick that some cattle producers do. They use that toxin, that mycotoxin, to stimulate an estrogenic effect in the beef for rapid weight gain. And then we get these clients that can't lose weight or having, like you said, periods at 8, 7. We had the autistic child that came in that was having their period at 6.5 years old. And and we did a lot of mycotoxin testing, and it was actually shocking. We repeated both heavy metal and mycotoxins. And this was actually when I was in Slovenia. A lot of people were talking about the Asia syndrome, where with the breast implants, And a lot of the German docs, and definitely a couple of the docs from Israel, were also talking about adjuvants, like in the flu shots and stuff, that the immune stimulator and we're worried about, some of that immune modulation having an effect. Is it a toxic effect? Is it an immune dysregulation, or what are we thinking is going on there?
Well, any time you give an adjuvant, it's supposed to. An adjuvant is a very small substance that has a very big reaction in the immune system. And actually, every vaccine is an adjuvant, so to speak. Okay. And so there are substances, for
Right.
instance, that was studied at Baylor College of Medicine years ago by a neurologist there. And he showed how breast implants, what they're made of, is an adjuvant.
Yes.
Dr. Bernard Patton. And furthermore, for example, you brought up animals that we eat, chicken, and these huge commercial chicken farms where there's hundreds of thousands of chickens. They give them these commercial foods, and they add arsenic in that food because it swells the stomach of the chicken up. The chicken eats more food to fill that space. And then if you look at arsenic, it's a white powder. If you heat it, it turns purple. And if you look at the bone of these chickens once it's cooked, there's parts purple. And you think, oh, those are veins. I'm sorry. But when you cook a piece of steak, there's veins in that steak. Do they turn purple? No. No, that's because they don't have the arsenic that the chicken feed does.
Wow. So I got on a bandwagon the other day. My community always wants to be able to eat cassava, right? It's kind of a trendy thing right now, cassava chips, cassava pasta. And I was like, you guys, it's got a very, very high propensity towards arsenic. It's got a very, very high, and people, I've probably been on the cassava kick. Not that everything's bad, but I just say, we've got to really be careful. They just did, I think it was 24 really, really cool brands. They did independent aftermarket testing, and the level of arsenic. And I, arsenic, we are so neurotic about arsenic testing because we use in our protein powders, we use an organic lectin-free chickpea, right? And organic kale and organic spinach. And those can have a propensity for arsenic. People don't realize that natural things can have a propensity for arsenic. So you got this supplement company that has, we have 27 nutrients in one product. You buy the raw ingredient and it's the level of arsenic's fine. You blend it and suddenly you're 27 times outside of legal limits. Legal limits should be 0, quite frankly. But yeah, so you have to make sure that you have that independent, not your own company, third-party testing on that same piece that I was, talking in our community the other day is, like you said, in the chicken industry, they do it to grow the stomach and increase weight gain. And so people sometimes will take a protein powder and they'll say, I'm starving afterwards. I'm hungry afterwards. I want to eat more. I'm not saying that for sure it has arsenic in it, but I'm just saying, don't be one of those, industrial raised human beings or chickens, right? That these toxins are actually a catalyst for weight gain and cardiovascular inflammation. And they are, it's not necessarily, your body's doing the very best that it can under these conditions, guys. But is what's in the body and what's being put in the body a catalyst for disease? And we need to look really, really carefully at that.
Very, very careful. Even in products such as ham, pork chops, etc., all of these, what they call hogs in the industry.
Yep.
All the pigs, about 7 to 10 days before they're sacrificed, they're given an injection of a substance known as ractopamine. Now, interestingly,
it's to protect us as consumers, right? Please tell. I'm so happy you're telling about this. Please tell us.
Ractopamine is banned everywhere in the world except for 2 countries, the United States and Mexico.
Right.
what it does is it takes the fat and transforms it into more meat so that the slices of bacon in the packaging look more meaty and less fat. And same for ham and all these other products that come from that kind of meat. But it's an alpha-adrenergic blocker, which means it's going to affect you. And it's going to affect your heart, your circulation, and it's toxic.
Right.
The toxic chemical. And what you said before is absolutely true. How much toxin is okay to have? 0.
Right. It's not meant to be in our body. I'm going to throw a little ag twist on that injection. So there was a crisis in the pork industry, and it was called PSE, pale, soft, and exudative. So a particular breed, genetic remodeling of pig for rapid weight gain, and they were looking actually at the time to increase the backstrap fat on a pig. And all these pigs started losing their water binding capacity, and they were trying. So the pigs looked watery, greasy after processing, and a lot of fat, right? And so that drug was allowed to be used as part of the healing, we'll call it with quotation marks, as part of the fixing of the processing. But like you said, it's Mexico and the US. And it is, you read about that drug and the neurotoxicity effect, especially on our little kids and on our developing fetuses and babies, that one alone is shocking. How does a person communicate? So for me, when I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, I will tell you, anti-rejection drugs and 60 to 80 milligrams of prednisone is awesome. I felt amazing when I first was on that drug. I dedicated Food RX to, I say, the first love of my life, which was prednisone. I mean, it let me because, with an autoimmune disorder, you feel awful. That drug was amazing. It almost killed me, right? Which forced me to the true love of my life, which is healing of the body, nutrition, nutrients, the mitochondria, I always say mitochondria is my true love, protein, denaturing, all of that I just geek out about. In my situation, I was forced. I was, going to lose my right kidney, going to have a splenectomy, going to start on IV chemotherapeutics. I was forced to really dig down and change the trajectory of my health and wellness. My goal is to shorten the gap of the hell I went through to the victory I'm in today, is to shorten that gap for people that are out there struggling, period. If I don't do anything else every day, that's my touchstone. How can someone start to communicate with their practitioner? They're not feeling good. They're going into the office. They don't see a carpet of mold in their, like my parents, some stuff was going on with my dad. We started digging through the house and, oh my God, what we found was shocking. And then we had mold testing done, all of that stuff. But how does someone communicate with their practitioner? What do we do to help people? How can I help people?
That is a problem. And I've talked to many, many of my colleagues because I lecture all over the planet. And I tell them, what is you heard my lecture. Why don't you use it? Why don't you learn from it? He says, because I've tried it, and people come in and they bring this huge sheaf of papers, and they say, okay, I downloaded this from the internet, and this is the program by this doctor or that doctor, and I want you to follow this. And they say, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to follow who somebody said on the internet.
Right.
What are their credentials? They call themselves doctors. Really, where did you and so forth. So they finally say, I'm not dealing with this. And that is hugely unfortunate because there's a bunch of people. I get about 5 to 10 emails a day from people who says, I was on this method and I was on that method for 3 years, 4 years. I spent $50,000. I spent over $100,000 and I'm still sick. What do I do? I'm now almost broke. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that all over and Dr. Google.
Yeah. If you were to say, like you had mentioned certain supplementation that was supportive for the detoxification process in the body, do you have some, what we call, superheroes Any ones that you go, gosh, if you're looking or assessing, or you have a toxic body, or you've been diagnosed with a toxicity issue, these are a few, 3 or 4 of my favorite things, or things that I've seen over the years make an impact, because there's a lot out there.
Oh, and everybody's making. If you watch this program, at the end you'll have a 20% discount for my products that I sell out of my office.
Yeah.
Okay, I've seen.
and well, maybe we'll always stay a small company, but the other thing too is like what's in the bottle. The 90% of the time, it's an epic success for marketing, a fail for your health. The bottle costs more than the nutrients. It's just heartbreaking.
So one other thing, as a matter of fact, my website says I don't sell anything on this website. I only educate. So the key ones I will tell you. One is vitamin D3.
Yep.
5,000 IUs. That's all you need. I mean, and you know, as I do, all the different studies that show the benefits of vitamin D3 supplementation, and how I have, I'd say in 1% of my patients, I see normal levels.
Right.
The rest are all deficient. And what's a normal level? Between 50 and 80.
Right.
Depending on the person's size, weight, etc. Second is magnesium. But I wrote an article on magnesium, published an article on that years ago. But the issue is people don't know there's 6 types.
Right.
And one of those types is used as a laxative in medicine.
Right. Citrate, right?
Correct. So
I got it right.
Oh, here's some. I'm going to take this. Oh, don't take that, because you're going to be running to the bathroom all day.
Right.
What you want to do is get the right kind of magnesium. Third, melatonin. And you don't need tons of it. 3 milligrams. Studies at University of Texas San Antonio branch have shown how these help remove toxins from the brain and help heal the brain after, say, a TBI, traumatic brain injury. You fell off your bike or motorcycle or whatever.
When I got in a car accident, a really bad car accident, and I was at the Brain Injury Recovery Center for 3 years. Wow. And my neurologist, Dr. McIntosh, and this was before people were kind of talking about it, but I was formulating at the time for another supplement company. And it's how one of the, I would say, large impetus for formulating the fatty acids that I use. He was diligent with the TBI, my fatty acids, and my melatonin. And I'm a big advocate for it. But I'm so glad to hear you say that, because, there's been more and more good studies, more beneficial studies. There was something that came out about it lowering testosterone in men. I was like, are you kidding me? When I have these kids, these young kids, I'm older now, 35, 37, 42, with low testosterone levels, one of the things I do is as we start to detoxify the body, as we start to restore the melatonin cycle, and without hormone replacement, right? And my goal is to never have to give them testosterone and have them have to go on an aromatase inhibitor so they don't back convert into estrogen, for them to be able to wash the receptor sites, reproduce the testosterone. Melatonin's been a really melatonin, magnesium. I mean, I am so excited that you're mentioning those, because clinically, but I didn't just pull it out of thin air. There's been cool, amazing scientific studies on that.
And then, of course, vitamin C, essential vitamin C. Dr. Linus Pauling, who won the Nobel Prize twice, wrote everything about it. And you go to the store, 100 milligrams, 250, 500. Those are ridiculously low amounts. That's not going to help. You need to have grams of this. And by the way, without magnesium, you do not absorb vitamin C.
Yay. So, I love that you said that.
And we don't make vitamin C, and we can't store vitamin C. So it's important to have it every day. Of course, you need some curcumin. Why? Because it's a wonderful anti-inflammatory.
And with curcumin and turmeric in general, I would say everything you said, source is important. Source is critically important.
Critical.
Curcumin, I cannot believe the toxicity levels in that product is a raw ingredient. So we purchase, right? We go through and what's even offered for me to buy. Luckily, I don't buy that. No. But what's offered for me to buy, not only the microbial count, but because they're spraying a lot of it so that it has a more vibrant color. The curcumin is dirty. I would say that is a dirty, if you're buying cheap curcumin, throw it away because you're probably doing more harm than good. And it is a magical phytonutrient. And it's got so many cofactors in it that really help, facilitate detoxification. I love that. I had no idea that you were going to make me so happy. This is fascinating. This is amazing. Tell me a little bit about testing a body. If a person has suspicion of it, do you test the environment? Do you test the body? How do we know? How do we quantify?
How do we quantify what?
If a person has a toxic load, what type of testing? Do you do blood, urine, air? What do you see clinically?
It's not that hard. And I'll tell you a couple of just fast rules that everybody can answer. Don't measure anything that's left the body.
Okay. So urine, saliva.
No, don't measure. Urine is what's left the body.
Yep.
You're not going to measure sweat, are you? No. I can tell you that for certain other things, like you want to know what what we call in medicine, the body burden. How much is in you and of each thing? How much is actually in you? Not what you let go of. So, for example, for heavy metals, you want things, believe it or not, like blood or hair.
And is the hair because we deposit it?
No, because it grows out in hair. Among other things, I'm board certified in forensic medicine,
Nice.
And every so often I get a call from some DA somewhere, and they say we've got to exhume a body because we now suspect that the spouse gave the poison or something.
Right.
How do we test? And I say, how long has the body been in the ground? Oh, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. Well, a lot of people don't know this, but after you're dead, your nails and your hair keep growing for a while. So I say, do hair, but get it from the root on out. Get a whole bunch and send it into the lab. Or, of course, these people don't have any blood. The other is to do blood also for these heavy metals. For things such as chemicals, the best test is an antibody test.
Ooh, okay.
Because it'll measure the immune reaction to that particular molecule. So
is that also for mycotoxins or chemicals in specific?
And antibodies are the most by what is called ELISA method, which is enzyme-linked immunoabsorbent assay, but even the Chinese call it ELISA. Is the most accurate, sensitive, and precise way to measure the small, tiny particles. What am I talking about? Viruses, they're tiny. They're very small. COVID virus. You didn't do a urine test for COVID. You did an antibody test for COVID.
Right.
Okay. The same for mycotoxins, the same for chemicals, formaldehyde, glyphosate, arsenic. Well, no, I'm sorry. Arsenic's a heavy metal. But all these other chemicals, it's an antibody test. And whenever you want, I can tell you which labs.
No, I would love that. Maybe we can create. So I would love for our community to know, one, is this on your website?
No.
Okay. Okay. But where can they go if they want to learn about testing?
So for heavy metals, Doctors Data Inc. in Chicago.
Yep. We've used them for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, they've been, yes. And I've known Dr. David Krieg there since before Moses, if like. Anyway, the other one for antibody testing for chemicals is Cyrex Laboratories.
Dr. Varajani.
He's a scientific advisor.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Varajani and I have probably published 40 studies together over the years.
Oh my gosh.
And I think he was in Slovenia because we were both going to meet up.
He was. I hope our community knows how, I don't know, those of you that are just listening audio, how much I'm just completely geeking out right now. Yes. I know you were going to be there, and I know that I got to spend time with him there, which was wonderful. So this is Cyrex antibody testing.
As I mentioned, if you want a good testing for viruses, use immunosciences, and also for Lyme.
And they're out of LA, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And what about molds?
Measuring molds, whether they're toxic or not, is not really helpful. Why? Let me explain it. In microbiology, you have 4 pathogens: viruses, bacteria, pathogenic fungi, and parasites. If you have an IgG response, that means that sometime in your life you were infected with this.
Right.
So if you have a positive test for some mold, it could have been because in your teen years you went to summer camp and stayed in a cabin that had mold in it. You don't know. It doesn't say when. It just says sometime in the last however long you've lived. If toxins, as I mentioned before, are molecules. Now, molecules are not in the body unless they get into the body. So unless you eat the wrong food, the wrong nutrition, or breathe the wrong type of air, yes, you're downstairs, they're painting your kitchen cabinets, and you're there all day inhaling those fumes. Those are going to go inside you as molecules. Those tiny particles are studied by antibodies. So for mycotoxins, it's Myco lab.
And how many different mycotoxins does that test?
14.
Ooh.
It's the only one on the planet that tests 14. And it tests for IgG, which shows if you have a toxic reaction and tells you how much you have in your body. And then you get IgE, which is the mast cell activation. And how much.
And does that have a strong inflammatory component too?
All toxins are inflammatory, because that's how we get diseases. That's how we get Alzheimer's, autism, infertility, Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I'd say about 2/3 of the women with Hashimoto's thyroiditis that I test for have mycotoxins. You treat the mycotoxins, their Hashimoto's goes away.
Right.
6 months. That's all it takes to treat toxic mold mycotoxins.
That's great.
But you have to have the nutrition, the right supplements, and you can't be around them.
So we have to eliminate, I love what you said, take the patient out of the toxic environment, and then get...
Yes. And then, or have the toxic environment remediated.
Right.
Unfortunately, like places up north where everybody has a basement, which is underground, which weeps.
Yes.
There's going to be mold all the time there. It's very hard to get rid of it.
Can you go through with me, what are the most common symptoms that you see with a toxic body?
Number 1, fatigue.
Okay.
We're not talking tired. We're talking about debilitating fatigue. You go to bed tired, you wake up tired.
So not restorative. Sleep without non-restorative. Got it.
It affects your daily living, your work, etc. Then the next is the brain. Short-term memory loss, brain fog, sleep disturbance. tip of the tongue. You know what word you want to say. It's right on the tip of your tongue, but you can't get it out. Problems with balance. You used to go up and down the stairs. Now you have to hold the handrails because you think you might fall, or things of that nature. Mood swings. Everybody has good days. And
Right.
these are all day long. Issues with anxiety and depression. One of the major medical schools chairman of the Department of Psychiatry sends the test to my microlab on his patients that don't respond to anti-anxiety medication or to antidepressants.
Don't you wish they would do that first, though?
Well, first he tries he's a psychiatrist. He's been doing
I know.
He's a wonderful person, wonderful man.
That's good.
He tries first that because it's cheaper.
Right.
It's a copay, $5.
Right.
For 3 weeks, you don't feel anything, come back, we're going to do a blood test.
That's great. And where is he located? Because I'm sure our community would love to have that kind of brilliance for their care.
I can't tell without his permission which medical school, because that would be a
no.
Ethically for me to mention his name or his medical school.
Absolutely. Well, I'm just glad to hear that there are physicians that are doing that. Obviously in our practice, we use all of the labs that you mentioned, which made me really happy that those are the ones that we're also using. Because, we want to do, just like you had said in the very beginning, we don't want to just treat patients. Our goal is to get patients well and as healthy as they can possibly be and living the most vibrant life that they can be. That brings me to the question is, how would our community find doctors that do this kind of testing? Is there some sort of like a resource, or they sign up for stuff? I mean, there's right now functional medicine and integrative medicine and, hopefully all of medicine, right? It just blows my mind that what we consider Western or traditional medicine, we need to look at what's impacting the body. We can identify the body in a disease state sometimes, right? We've now got more autoimmune markers than ever that can delineate between Sjogren's or Hashimoto's thyroiditis or ITP or whatever. We can differentiate the disease state, but we need to really identify cause.
Correct.
And
number one.
Okay.
Identify the cause, remove the cause, repair the damage, and the patient is healed.
Right.
So what you can do, first of all, I teach people, and I tell you what doctor in New Zealand, Cambodia, Dubai, Czechoslovakia, France, United Kingdom, Panama, you name the country, I can direct you to a doctor, because anytime anyone does a test, they get to talk to me. And I speak several languages because I grew up and was educated in Europe. So, it's easy, this way in France, this way is Germany, this way in Italy, and you speak all these languages. And plus I speak several other ones that are kind of unusual. But it's nice.
Good. I'm heading to Vienna, Austria. So I'm hoping to shadow some immunologists over there. What do we do in the United States? How do we find a doc that's going to look at
the United States? First of all, if you're just Mr. or Mrs. Jones, you can order the test.
You can? It doesn't have to be doctor guided?
No.
Oh.
And so you order the test, and then when you order the test, they send you a kit. And they send you where to find a phlebotomist to draw the blood, spin it down, and send it back. It comes with a prepaid envelope and all that, and you send it back to the lab. Then they analyze it. Then you get the test results, and then if you want, you can say, I don't understand this. What does this mean? I want to talk to Dr. Campbell, and then they set up a time to speak to me.
Okay, that's very exciting. How do they do that? What's the website?
They get MYMY COLAB.com.
MyMycoLab.com. Okay. That's awesome. What I'd love to do is, if you're open to it, I would love to have you come back on. I would love to have some of our, nobody heard that, but he said, "Of course, Haylie." Yes. That's the way I took the expression. I'd love to look at some of these labs together. If that would be something that we could do, that'd be so fun to look at some cases. Okay, great. And I think that'd really help our community. And those of you that are really looking to see and figure out some of the root causes. If you're stuck, if the scale's not moving, a couple things. Don't you dare not double down on your nutrition today. Don't you dare not be diligent about where you're sourcing supplementation from. Supplements are important, but remember, guys, it's just as important as what's in them and where they came from as what it is that you're taking. Cannot tell you. I've formulated many companies, many times, and sometimes, a lot of times, most of the time, the bottle's more expensive than the raw ingredient. But the other thing is looking at root cause. And, we just went through this in our family. I've shared with a lot of you guys kind of some of the health things that have been going on with my daughter. And it was really phenomenal, really insightful. And Dr. Campbell, I'm going to call and talk to you about that. I'm so excited to have that one-on-one with you. But I'd love for you to come back. And Dr. Campbell, what would you say to those people out there right now in our community that are struggling and maybe they've had a diagnosis of ME/CFS, maybe like myself, autoimmune, like my daughter ended up in the hospital at UCLA with viral activation. She's had CMV and, EBV, IgM positive now for a second time, and it's Babesia, they say. But it turns out that she's got, some toxicity issues that are doing viral mimicking and antibody mimicking. And if we didn't have people like you in our world, we just wouldn't have been able to get the answers that we're getting. So what would you say to people out there that are struggling right now?
One thing I would tell them is don't lose hope, because there is a way out. And you say, well, what is that way out? Well, here we are. You have two people that you're watching that can help you. So find the real help. Don't go to some whatever on Dr. Google who says and makes all kinds of promises. No, go to real healers like this wonderful lady, and like there are several, and we have many doctors that I've trained all over the planet that can really help you wherever you live, wherever you are. It doesn't matter if you're in, I don't know, Illinois or Arizona or wherever. There's people that really know what they're doing that can help you.
And I'm going to add, if people don't believe your reality is real, and if people aren't InfoSeekers personally as practitioners, just walk away, because there's a lot of people out here that are working every day diligently to try and find solutions to the complexity that you've found yourself in. Dr. Campbell, I can't thank you enough. This is a personal dream of mine. To heck with the podcast. I'm fulfilled and joyful today. And I'm so happy to finally get to meet you. And I really look forward to doing more work together and bringing you into our community. There are hundreds of thousands of people that watch this show that are going to be better because you took time. So I really, really appreciate it.
You're always very welcome.
Okay, we'll talk soon.